The following is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
"30 years ago, my friends and I spent the night at a cabin. We found the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. Certain passages were recited. It awoke something in the woods. Something evil. I was the only one to escape. But now, the evil has found me. My heart is jackhammering like a quarterback on prom night. I'm not a grief counselor, but if it's any consolation, you're kind of like a young me. That ice ruined your life, and you're hot as hell.
1, 2, 3, 4. Almost every day, I see the same face. A broken picture too. If it's the attitude. If you can see yourself, you put your on a shelf. Your verbal masturbate. Promise to nauseate. Today I play the part of not parent. Not make 100 rules for you to know about yourself. Not lie, make you believe what's evil. It's making love and making friends and meaning God's your own way. The right way to see, to bleed, cannot be done. In turn, you're making us fucking lost. We stand alone. Groovy.
First off, let's talk the Evil Dead movies. The Evil Dead films are awesome. It's hard to pick a favorite because each one has its own individual charm. And Evil Dead the game is in exactly the same boat. It is awesome. All the characters from the Evil Dead films and the series Ash vs. Evil Dead are available to play, with Bruce Campbell himself actually doing the voice of Ash.
Fuck yeah.
So the way that it's set up, it's a multiplayer game where you can play as either a survivor or a Kandarian demon. There is a single player mode, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Playing as a survivor absolutely nails the horror movie feel of working in a group to overcome an evil threat. But playing as a Kandarian demon is a misadventure all of its own that fulfills your villainous fantasies. Now yes, you're probably saying to yourself, well Gaz, this is another asymmetrical multiplayer game, quite like Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th. And in saying that, you'd be right. But here it's presented with a goofy Bruce Campbell style flair that's every bit as weird and campy as the movies.
Yeah, looking good. Looking sweet.
So when you play in survivor mode, you have 4 playable survivors who have to work as a team to perform a ritual that banishes evil from the land. And while the survivors are doing this, one evil player does everything they can to kill the survivors using an army of the undead. It's hard to feel bad for the poor souls succumbing to your unbelievable evil. The game of cat and mouse is an absolute blast no matter what side you're on. Playing as a survivor feels like a familiar squad-based third-person shooter in which you're running around as a squad, looking for loot and killing enemies as you steadily power up. Only here, your goal isn't just survival, but completing objectives like finding map pieces and defending areas to claim relics that you will need for your purification ritual. With plenty of melee and ranged weapons to find and 13 characters to choose from, each with their own unique abilities and skill trees that you can level up, its progression system very quickly got its hooks into me with all the different ways that things can play out. For example, the hunter type characters excel at using ranged weapons and have abilities that make them a huge thorn in the side for a demon player. Alternatively, you might want to play as a leader type character that can swing a sword and buff the team with effects that can make them particularly lethal in combat. The experience as playing as one of the demon characters has very few sticking points, mostly because you float across the map as this big orb of evil that can very quickly mess with survivor characters with godlike powers, and this is an objective that never stops being amusing. And that's due in large part to how Evil Dead the game lets you accomplish these goals. You can summon huge hordes of computer-controlled enemies for the survivors to fight, set traps that spawn enemies, or even possess undead characters to control them directly, making them even stronger and more difficult to deal with. Another amusing way to win is by just simply wasting survivors' time, by doing such things as possessing their car they're driving and steering it off a cliff, or by possessing a tree and then swatting humans in the face as they relax around the campfire. Evil Dead the game captured my heart instantly. It's easily the best monster mode in a game that I've ever seen. But it has to be said though that the package as a whole does feel feel a little light in content. This is especially where maps are concerned. There are only 2, and although they're fairly large and each has a few interesting areas, after a dozen or so matches, I started seeing a lot of the same places over and over again, and that increasingly wore down Evil Dead's novelty as time went on. You can only hang out so many times at a derelict doll factory before you feel like you've seen all that a derelict doll factory has to give. Evil Dead the game, unlike its counterpart Dead by Daylight, actually has single player missions which you do have to play to unlock some of the best characters. But unfortunately, these missions are without a doubt the worst part of the package. While they try to serve as palate cleansers to the multiplayer experience, they just end up being really tedious slogs through maps that you play in the multiplayer games, where you complete some quests, fight some enemies, and receive snippets of storyline through still images that pop up and interrupt you while you're playing. Also, the single player levels don't have checkpoints, so you can die and lose your progress and then have to do it all over again every fucking time, and it takes forever. Evil Dead the game is an awesome multiplayer game that, just like its source material, is awesome, even if at times it can become quite frustrating and is a little light on maps and modes. But playing as a survivor is an awesome multiplayer shooter, and playing as a demon is just downright magnificent. And that is thanks to the amusingly fiendish ways that you can mess with the other team. But in single player mode, the missions are a distressing mess. But everything else proves completely worthy of the absolute classic movies that inspired it.
Groovy.
For Dark Discussions, my name's Gaz. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Until then, good night and God bless.